Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show, brought to you by our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts running for money in addition to many forms of NFL fantasy contests, including these playoff contests that I love playing and speculating on who's going to get into the playoffs. These are all still running huge prizes over there. If you're playing NBA Pick'em in season, Established the Run customers can use our tools to compare ETR projections to their pick'em lines and their pick'em games. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, use the promo code ETR at checkout. You can get a deposit bonus matched up to $100 on your first deposit. You will get $100 matched from Underdog. Use the promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com on your checkout. 13 games ahead of us on this Wednesday slate. After 15 games on Monday, I hope everybody enjoyed the day off yesterday, got out there and voted, participated in democracy. Very important to keep a democracy going. Mike, how are you on this last, for a little while, gigantic slate?
Great. Yeah, had a fun day yesterday. Got a really nice dinner, had some grouper, bought a 65-inch OLED TV in my bedroom now, which is absurd. But yeah, feeling good. Got a little CLV bet again with OKC that you got in on. Love to see it. But
Nice.
yeah, pretty full day. Matchups is up. Should be a good day.
For once this year, I will be watching Oklahoma City Thunder games while you are. While we're talking about us watching games together, programming note, tonight, Mike Gallagher and myself will be live streaming and watching the battle for Los Angeles, the Lakers and the Clippers, the national TV game. You can find us on playback.tv/ETR. Create an account over there, sign up, create the account. Use the link to join the scheduled broadcast when we go live at 10. We'll be talking about props, DFS, looking for live in-game betting opportunities to share with you all as well, if any come about. But just hanging, talking ball. Join us tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern on playback.tv/ETR. Okay, we've got plenty ahead. We'll start with, and Mike, you've dropped this hint on spaces on the injury show here, the 1:30 Eastern NBA injury report. It's always an opportunity to get some closing line value with some stale lines. Today, the announcement was no Giannis Antetokounmpo, in addition to no Jrue Holiday, who was listed as out last night. With the Bucks, they've done this in the past where stuff has come in increments, so it doesn't mean this is it for Milwaukee. So, hang on to your butts. What are your thoughts on how Milwaukee looks without Giannis, without Jrue, and still no Chris Middleton tonight in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, just to add, 1:30 is the moneymaker. They used to file at 1:30, 5:30 as the big ones, and now they do it every hour. So set your alarm for 1:28 and be ready for it to go. I just want to leave with that. Yeah, my first thought was, even before the Giannis stuff, was I think Javon Carter is going to play a lot. The matchup's really important to note here because they're going to guard SGA with him, and I think given the lack of on-ball pressure, losing. That's really their whole cupboard is Javon Carter and Jrue Holiday. Taking away Jrue Holiday, you really only have one ball pressure guy. It's Javon. They want to make Marjon Beauchamp that guy eventually, but he's not ready yet. So we could see a lot of minutes out of Javon Carter. You can really see how his fitness is because he likes to pick guys up early. So he could play a bunch. My second thought on talking about the Giannis stuff now is Grayson Allen ball handling. There was a couple quotes earlier in the year that Budenholzer was saying they want to run more Grayson Allen actions. He'll be really busy. Obviously, probably the easiest part here that everyone knows is Bobby Portis night is going to be on and popping. Not a lot of size in that OKC front court. I'll get to the OKC side in a second, but I would expect those guys to be the main beneficiaries. We'll see, probably more usage just all across the board. We'll see Wes Matthews probably playing behind Beauchamp, as those guys are kind of like the wing defenders. Maybe even, running Grayson point guard stuff and putting Wes behind Javon Carter to be a ball pressure guy as well. So, yeah, those are kind of the overall what I'm thinking. And then, just Serge will be in the rotation, little stuff like that.
I think people immediately assume Bobby Portis when they think about, okay, who's left, who can pick up a role. Brook Lopez has been fantastic this year. Generally in the past, when they've sat Giannis and Jrue and Middleton, Lopez has been a risky investment. Do you think there's any risk of Lopez kind of being late scratch tonight?
I don't think so. I think this is. I mean, he was listed with this before. He missed that back-to-back game. Maybe they just didn't think he felt right. So I don't think this is like a a quote unquote rest spot. Drew was hurt. He rolled his ankle late in the last game. Did play through it. Not surprising at all to see him out. Guys hurt their ankles, play through it all the time because adrenaline, come back and miss time. It's pretty standard. So yeah, I think we're probably safe. But said that before, and I've been wrong. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for a game in the middle of the night.
The other name that we have seen historically pop off a lot when Milwaukee has been very shorthanded is Jordan Nwora. What do you see his role, or what do you envision his role being tonight?
Yeah, I should have mentioned him. They definitely need offense, and you're taking Bobby Portis. I think Bobby Portis starts just because I think Budenholzer has said he's quote like a starter. So I think he's a guy who, but Nwora has played some more 3 this year. I think they'd probably trust him more in the second unit against kind of inept OKC second unit players. So I think that makes sense. And they're really thin at the 2-3. So there's a lot of ways for him to get up there. And that's kind of why I think Portis starts to help Nwora push up and fill some 3 minutes along with Wes and Beauchamp and, all those dudes.
Yeah, I could definitely see a scenario where Nwora comes off the bench, but is basically just a usage hog in that second unit. They'll obviously stagger these guys some, but it makes sense that in terms of guys that can create their own shot for Milwaukee, it's probably Nwora and Portis and not much else. You could make an argument maybe for Grayson, but not really. You can make an argument for Brook with like post ups. So you might see something where like, I was just thinking about this off the cuff, but you might see something where Brook's 3-point attempt rate comes way down because they end up using him more as like a primary, focal point of offense or different things like that. That's something that I would envision being more the case if Portis did not start and Nwora started, right? Then it's a lineup where, you're gonna maybe feed Brook a little bit more. But some thoughts there. We'll cover more of this on the DFS show with myself and Cash Game Gary at 5:00 Eastern time tonight. On to the questionable tags. We've got plenty on this slate. Let's start with Portland. They are on the front end of a back-to-back. Yusuf Nurkic and Jeremy Grant, along with Keon Johnson, all got questionable tags. Anthony Simmons, Dame Lillard, and Josh Hart all got probable tags. Portland plays tomorrow against New Orleans, a game that you would think would be a priority between these two games, at Charlotte versus at New Orleans, a likely playoff contender in the Western Conference. What are your thoughts on Portland, guys, tonight?
Yeah, that's a not surprising news, actually, with the whole rotation essentially getting hit with a P tag on the front end. Mentioned the importance of the game tomorrow. So adductor injury for Nurk. I don't really have any info. I saw Grant tweak his ankle, and he played right through it really without an issue. So there's, it's more of a management thing with the back-to-backs, and getting all those P tags definitely kind of had you on red alert. I'm wondering if that's a trend now, because we saw okay, if you're playing a Sitta guy, because we saw it with Giannis, he was probable on the front end and then sat. And
I'm very interested to see if Milwaukee gets fined for this. For this today,
I don't know. I don't think they should fine him. I saw some people talking about that. He was listed with it before, so I think he just wasn't feeling as good, and they ruled him out. But it's definitely, I kind of hope they don't get fined. Because if you push Milwaukee a certain way, I'd rather have their trend, because we kind of spot this Giannis probable tag. We kind of can read between the lines on it a little bit. So I'd rather them kind of that way we kind of have an understanding of what their injury reporting is. But back to the Blazers. So Nurk, I don't have much info on this, but obviously if he doesn't play, they're going to push up Drew Eubanks. And they ran a ton of Justice Winslow at the 5. They've got the depth now in the backcourt. We saw Winslow starting at the point guard spot. So he has been quite a Swiss Army knife, maybe worth 4 first-round picks, as Danny Ainge once wanted. So that would obviously push up Nazir Little, and then use their wing depth that way. We see a little bit more Shaden Sharp. They just run kind of a smaller second unit. I don't think they would really need to bring in the Greg Browns of the world and those guys. Obviously, if you're taking Grant out, I think they'd want to play probably Winslow there and bring Nazir Little in behind him. Definitely would benefit, push up the minutes there, and then maybe sit someone out tomorrow. We'll see how Damon and Simons hold up. I was actually thinking that Dame and Simons would be more likely to sit today, so that's kind of interesting. Yep. But I think that mostly covers it. Should mention Keon Johnson's also questionable. He was listed questionable yesterday, so he looks to be a little bit more jeopardy of missing time.
if Nurk was unable to go, you mentioned Winslow, picking up some more minutes at the 5. Eubanks would be the starter there, I assume, and you would assume like a normal starter-ish role. I know we saw Eubanks start in the back half of last season when they were really shorthanded without Nurk, and sometimes he would get up to like 34, 35 minutes. I'm guessing in this instance, unless they were down both Nurkic and Grant, it would be more like a 26 to 29 type minutes role. Is that your expectation, or do you think there's room for more?
I think it sounds about right. Could be so the next question you ask, are there any minutes restrictions on Damon Simons if they're trying to play him in both, right? So that could push up some of the other guys that aren't quite the star players. So a whole lot of moving parts here.
Yeah. Okay. Other questionable tags. Chris Paul is questionable. He left last
He's
game.
actually not questionable anymore. He has been ruled out. So
okay.
Yeah, that happened just as we popped on.
Okay, good to know. So let's talk about how Phoenix looks. Did we get an update on Campaign? Is he on the injury report?
He should be good to go. I don't think he's listed.
So let's talk about how Phoenix looks in the absence of Chris Paul. We got a little bit of a taste of it last game against Philadelphia when Chris Paul left in the second quarter.
The headline was Booker. 43 minutes played, 24 minutes in the second half. A ton of ball handling. We've seen this before. He'll be playing, a stupid amount of minutes if this game is close, and probably should be, right? Against Minnesota. Minnesota notoriously has laid a lot of eggs, although Wolves don't lay eggs. We'll see Campaign likely start. Behind him's tricky. They're going to have to stagger Booker. I think are going to run a lot of shooting. I'm curious to see if they push up Damian Lee a bit more, as Lee kind of cut into Craig. Not injury related, but I think Lee's a dark horse and not in this matchup, but other ones, to unseat Craig, to play Craig behind Bridges and take a little bit off him, because they're asking Bridges to do a ton. Bridges picked up a lot of minutes. Big winners: Booker, Payne, Damian Lee to a lesser degree, and then little bit of Mikal. I think they're asking Mikal to take on some ball handling so he could benefit, and again, a lot of minutes, because they're getting thin here without Cam. No Crowder still, so we talked about this on the show, on the pod, that the margins are getting real thin here if they lose an injury. So I'm curious to see if they could pull out a win out tonight. It'd be really impressive.
This is under normal conditions, it would be really impressive. They're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves though, and I don't know how impressive those wins these days. But Minnesota, this is an opportunity to get the ship righted a little bit here with no CP3. But yeah, we should see huge opportunity from Devin Booker, and Campaign will be a big value play as well. As Cash Game Gary notes in chat. Okay, Trae Young was questionable last game.
Can I just add? There's zero. I'm never betting on the Wolves, like probably ever again. That night of swaying the Wolves is just not happening. Just add that. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm just telling everyone, unless you are a glutton for punishment, don't do it.
Trae Young, questionable. He missed last game with this questionable tag that got downgraded to doubtful, closer to tip. We saw a huge win, honestly, in his absence, as Atlanta played really well. Got a big win against Milwaukee, giving the Bucks their first loss of the season. Questionable again with the shin contusion. Went through shoot around today. What are your expectations for Trae Young tonight?
Yeah, should be back, right? Contusion on the shin. Usually the thing doesn't take too long to heal, so it should be back. Hero was the bench again. AJ Griffin went off. Okongwu was spectacular. Shout out to us for the over. So assuming Young is back, the next question you ask yourself: has Griffin earned a role? Like about a week and a half ago, there was talk with McMillan about him earning a role, and after he goes off, you would think that's happened. So does he eat into Aaron Holiday a little bit? Does he eat into Justin Holiday a little bit? That could be something to watch, but expecting Trae back in a matchup that is interesting against a team that is excellent at taking away perimeter shooting and likes to give up interior stuff. So if Trae's a little bit limited, it could be a really, really nice DeJounte Murray night here.
Yeah, and AJ Griffin, one of the guys that I am most excited about seeing the development on, because the Hawks need depth. Mm-hmm. They traded all the first round picks. They got rid of depth with Kevin Huerter to bring in DeJounte, and that was a bet on, hey, we can find depth to fill out and have a different roster than we had last year. And then Bogdan Bogdanovic is a little bit behind on his return, and all of a sudden the depth's been tested. This is the guy. They need AJ Griffin to be a guy to step in and give them good rotation minutes. And he has not played a ton, but when he has played, he has looked good. He looked good in the preseason too, I thought. So We know Brian Schroeder at Cosmos, who does a lot of draft work, comes with on the podcast with us every year, was a big AJ Griffin fan. And so far, so good on that front. So I'm really excited about him as somebody who has Hawks to win the division bets this year. That Monday night was a really nice one with Miami losing and Atlanta winning. Speaking of Southeast Division candidates, my guy, Paolo Banchero, cashed a couple overs for us on Monday night, but showed up on the injury report here on Wednesday with an ankle issue. They also have Kevon Harris listed out here. Any updates on Paolo in terms of his likelihood of being available tonight?
Yeah, I saw this one. Pretty light tweak because driving to the lane, didn't have a lot of weight over his ankle. Didn't really go. He hobbled to the bench on a timeout, went straight out. Should be fine. Again, don't assume that he's automatically in, but I would definitely lean in here. And we did see it again, very light, no locker room trip, should be fine. Shout out to us for having his overs and double dipping in a matchup that is significantly worse for him. One of his worst games of the season was against the Mavs. Shout out Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yeah, man, these Magic 2-9 lost to Houston, just killing me with the overs. And I'm just in-game betting them. I just need to. Your Wolves are becoming my Magic this year. All right. In that same game for Dallas, no Christian Wood. Tim Hardaway Jr. is questionable. Is Luka scoring 50 real points tonight?
Man, he put up 44 on these guys last week. They don't have anybody that can pressure him. They've got a lot of size down there. It doesn't matter. We've seen just so many coverages thrown at him.
With the Nick Nurse stuff. Too small.
Yeah, it's insane. He's at 77 true shooting on his drives. That is stupid. But the next besides the Lucas stuff, which is ridiculous, how they replace Christian Wood, I think it's with a lot of size. I think they play a decent amount of Powell. I think they play a little bit of Maxi Kleber at the 4. They're going to need the size in this matchup. Maxi Kleber has been great. Dwight Powell has been amazing down the stretch. He has just had so many big impact rebounds or just extending possessions with this just little winning play. It was almost like big man Marcus Smart with how he's just winning without stat sheet production. But anyways, expect those guys to benefit. Tim Hardaway Jr. legit injury. I kind of think he's out. And I mentioned this on the space. The Dallas floor has been a problem. Splits. Luka did a split. He's fine. THJ did a split from slipping. He's hurt. Siakam last week split on a wet floor. He's out. So step it up, ball boys. Need to get Kramer out there or something. But I would expect Josh Green to benefit. We saw Josh Green close over Reggie Bullock. Interesting. After Reggie Bullock seemed to be safe. The red meat diet has not worked for him. Need to get some more beef in his life, apparently. But I think that mostly. And Spencer Dinwiddie should also get a little bit more.
That's what I was going to say.
Play. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. So Spencer Dinwiddie so far, when he staggered off the floor from Luka, it's always been with Christian Wood. There are very few times that Spencer Dinwiddie is just on the floor by himself and able to create all of the offense by himself. He's going to get 10 minutes of that tonight when Luka's off the floor. 10 minutes of Spencer Dinwiddie with really high usage. Expect to see that tonight. Agree with you that they're generally just going to play a lot bigger, and this gives them the opportunity to play both JaVale and Dwight in the same game a little bit more than they have so far. So I would expect to see JaVale's minutes get back closer to 16, 17, 18. And I expect Dwight Powell to be the same. And as you allude to, Maxi Kleber going to play at the 4 and some at the 5. They're just going to end up, really condensing this rotation down, especially if they're without Tim Hardaway Jr., because they don't have a lot of confidence in the rest of the guys on the bench. So you could see really strong minutes ceilings from the Dallas guys tonight. They are on the front end of a back-to-back. That's the one caveat here to note is they play tomorrow night in Washington as well. But really, really good spot. And Luka, man, if there was any game that he's putting up 50, 60 real life points, something like that, this would seem to be it if they're down all this secondary offense tonight against the Magic, who can't slow down anybody.
Mm-hmm. I wrote 50, 10, 10 is possible tonight. And just quickly on Josh Green, among guys with 15 minutes played, he's leading with 92 true shooting. The guy can't miss. It's absurd. And all that preseason buzz. You
were skeptical of that preseason buzz.
I was very. And Nick Richards. Those two guys are getting so much buzz. And it's like, I watched these guys a lot last year, and I don't really.
They were very different players last year. The young guys can make really big jumps in the offseason, and sometimes we don't get to see it, right? Because they're not playing as much in these things. Okay. Aaron Nesmith, foot soreness. We've seen his availability impact Chris Duarte, impact Benedict Mathurin on the Pacers side of things. What are we expecting tonight for Aaron Nesmith?
I'm not sure. We've seen him get ruled out pretty early. This is a foot aggravation thing that was bothering him in the preseason. Hurt himself last week. He's been out since. So I think they're going to just sit him just because we've seen Andrew Nembhard be awesome closing in the Miami game and just has run away with the role. 34. He's playing a complete starter's role here to give a little bit of pressure off of Halliburton. He's playing off ball more, picking up a lot of defense. Rick Carlisle called him an old school type player. He's just completely warmed up to him as a rookie kind of a player. So I'm expecting a big role from him. Ben Mathurin, really disappointing game from him against the Pelicans. But yeah, just mostly. And then Buddy Hield's minutes have been always really high, and they should be high. They're real thin here, as they don't want to play TJ McConnell too many minutes right now.
All right, Malik Monk, who's been really great for Sacramento. One of their better offseason signings in a while relative to the early season production. He's questionable. What are your thoughts on his availability tonight?
Yeah, I don't have much on this one. I picked up a pretty good amount of playing time in the last one and actually took minutes away from Keegan Murray. So it doesn't really make natural sense that Monk would have been affecting Keegan Murray, but it kind of does in like a significant way because we've seen Keegan Murray lose minutes in the last 3 games to, in order, Monk, Trey Lyles, and Monk again. So in this match, and the Trey Lyles thing was size related. They're not going to need the size here. So if he can't go, I would expect a pretty big role from Keegan.
All right, Jared Vanderbilt, the abductor strain, once again missed a few games. What are your thoughts on his availability tonight?
I don't have much. He's been getting ruled out pretty early. Adductor is usually an injury that takes some time, so probably leaning out. Not a strong take on that one though. We haven't got too many updates. Obviously, Malik Beasley would start and would change the matchups a lot because if Malik Beasley's starting, I think Trae Young would pick him up to make the matchups a little bit tougher for Clarkson or Mike Conley. I think Trey would pick up Conley if they did go with Vanderbilt in.
All right, good to know. On to the Spurs. Zach Collins ruled out 2 to 4 weeks, and Doug McDermott is questionable with an ankle sprain. So some front court depth issues potentially here. They do get Romeo Langford back. What are your thoughts on the Spurs rotation tonight?
Yeah, I think McDermott has a shot to play. Don't have too much on that. Romeo would probably fill in his role minutes-wise. They like his length, so he'd be a kind of a long wingy D. They've been using McDermott as more of a 3 than a 4 as they're bringing in KBD to guard wings and those guys. So I'd expect those guys to benefit. We saw Josh Richardson's minutes come back up, so that would also possibly help if McDermott's not out. They could use their extra 3s and 4s as more with the guys to fill McDermott's minutes as opposed to other guys. So he would be a sneaky beneficiary. Same with Sohan, who's been really quiet on the stat sheet.
Thought it was a little bit surprising that with Zach Collins out, they went to Charles Bassey over Isaiah Roby. But it seems like that's, they're viewing Collins kind of as a pure 5 and Roby as a pure 4 at this point, right?
Yep. And over Gorgie Jang as well. So they gave Bassey a shot on a 2-way. Curious to see how long now that he's out, I won't be out for too long, so I guess they could just run out Charles Bassey a little bit again.
Okay, on to your Oklahoma City Thunder. Poku, questionable on the injury report tonight. Any thoughts on how that impacts their rotation?
Don't think it does. I think he'd be coming off the bench either way, and the guy who's affected the most on this Giannis thing is Darius Bazley. Last year, they minutes matched Bazley to guard Giannis in their 2 matchups against them, so I thought Bazley would have been a real sneaky play. That's obviously off the table now. So I think they would kind of go back to their they could go well, I guess it depends on if Portis is starting. If Portis is starting, they're probably going to run bigger. They could even run, JRE on Brook, and I guess they could go Cambridge on Bobby Portis there or something to that effect. They could even go Jalen Williams because Portis isn't really a post player. And they could start Poku there too. So it really just all depends on how his health is. We won't get any updates. Mark Dagnall said they're not going to give us any more updates on stuff because they don't want to get fined, which is like I was saying, I just don't find these guys. There's, let them talk, and any information we get is, even if it's possibly misleading, I still would rather have that.
I'd rather an injury report be reflective. That's all
Yeah.
I want. I mean, I find a way until questionable tags are legit in the 50th, like 40 to 60% range in terms of when guys are sitting. That's what I want. That's my my spreadsheet version, socialist world. On to Larry Nance, questionable with a knee injury. Pelicans have quietly been playing pretty bad basketball. They've lost 3 of their last 4. The only win was against the Golden State Reserves when they sat everybody, and they did not put that team away very quickly. And if you look at some of the early season wins that looked kind of good for New Orleans, they look a little bit shakier now. It's been a pretty tough start for a team that we both were very, very high on. I mean, they went in, they beat Brooklyn, they beat Charlotte, they lost to Utah at home. Dallas at home was a good win. Lose at Phoenix. Win at the Clippers looked really good. Doesn't look as great anymore. Loss at the Lakers looks bad. Loss at Indiana looks bad. Like it does not look great. And Larry Nance has been one of their more effective players. The trio of Nance, I think it's Nance, Alvarado, and Trey Murphy has been super, super effective for them. We've seen it impact Joe Val's minutes quite a bit. What are your thoughts on Nance's availability tonight and how we could potentially attack it if he is not available?
Yeah, the big note here is the lack of overall center minutes. Yes, part of that was Nance's injury. Nance's injury was pretty late, though. So you see the 22 from Joe Val and the 14 from Nance. That's a lot of minutes left over. So and we talk about this a lot. I talked about it a lot in the preseason. Green has so many ways to close and play the matchups with Alvarado and really Trey Murphy is the main 2 guys. Sometimes they go to Graham, etc. But I think they would push that way a little bit more going to the matchup against Chicago. You know, there's not a lot of big wings there, so they could certainly get away playing a little bit smaller at the 4. Zion at the 5 against Vooch is certainly capable of working, adding another more length as well. Adding someone like Alvarado to take the on-ball stuff and push Herb over makes a lot of sense. So I think they would just naturally push the rotation a lot smaller. So we've seen so basically like I wouldn't be looking to capitalize on Valanciunas. I think it would add a little bit more ceiling on him if he's playing well, but there's still a little bit of downside to him if Nance can't go.
Yeah, you can see that small lineup also resulted in Miles Turner having 37, 12, and 3, and the Pacers putting up 129 points. So I do wonder if that impacts any of the decision-making there tonight. Okay.
Willie Green did blame himself, by the way. He says this loss was on him. He says his guys weren't ready to play, and he blamed himself for some of the rotation. So maybe he doesn't want to do this anymore. But I think he wants to, but he may have a quick hook for it.
It'll be interesting. I would lean into, if Nance is ruled out, would lean into some of the additional upside for Joe Val, because I think Joe Val could get off to a quick start against Vooch. And that's where I would lean. But we'll see. It's obviously risky given the downside is there, and they have so many different ways that they can play. Okay, on to the Knicks. Quentin Grimes, still questionable. No Mitch Robinson. We saw the Knicks go from playing Isaiah Hartenstein 38 minutes and Jericho Sims 3 to starting Jericho Sims the next game. Isaiah Hartenstein getting into foul trouble. Neither guy playing a ton, and Julius Randle and Obi Toppin smashing. So we've seen a lot of moving parts for a guy who I just had my best friend in town last weekend who's a huge Knicks fan. And I would say a good 30%, so like 70% of our conversation was about my engagement. The other 30% was about tips rotations, and and specifically the tips doesn't change or do anything different or whatever. They're doing all sorts of different stuff now. What are your thoughts on if Grimes is unavailable tonight? What things would look like tonight for the Knicks?
Man, 30% of talking tips rotation. Could I steal your best friend? That's like my dream. But so Tibbs asked about Sims. What do you think his first answer was? Why do you think he started Sims?
I would guess. The only thing I can think of is the verticality. I don't know.
Passing. He said passing. So that was really weird. Yeah, that's total Tibbs. But I think he wants to do it. He likes that bench continuity, which is kind of indication that Mitch won't be out for too much longer. So we know Tibbs is a bit every presser he's talked about his bench versus starters, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they want him out there. Obviously, they have a quick hook. I think Hartenstein still has a pretty big ceiling there. I think they're still going to go that way, but Hartenstein's definitely the guy you want to bet on here.
So my thinking would be that in this matchup against Brooklyn, where there's not really a backup center that you're super worried about,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be an easier matchup to get top-end center minutes, that they might be more likely to start Hartenstein and match his minutes with Claxton, and then lean in the second unit. We'll know this is an earlier game, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that be the case. I do think they're going to continue to work to get Obi Toppin more minutes. He's been so effective. So what are your thoughts there for minutes for Toppin tonight?
So not a good rebounding team at all. That is usually the Tibbs's lean. If he's concerned about rebounding, he won't go that way. I mean, you've got the worst rebounding team in the NBA, arguably. So definitely think it could be an OB kind of a night there, and they don't really need a lot of size either across the board. So because Ben's tall, but he can't score. So yeah, it definitely makes sense to run that lineup out there quite a bit.
More like Obi Poppin tonight. Zeke Naji, questionable for Denver. Ish Smith ruled out there. Zeke has been kind of on the periphery of the rotation. Any notes there?
No, he just cracked the rotation and then gets hurt right away. It's really sad to see. So not really much of an impact there to talk about. Jamal, I think the interesting thing is Jamal Murray's minutes are up, and we're seeing he's kind of rounding into form, having some highlight reel plays, and Malone says he's still not 100% there for his conditioning and just overall play, but he's getting there. So it's kind of going according to plan here.
They're starting to flow a little bit offensively, and you're seeing Jokic start to put up numbers that are a little bit more representative. It seemed like the early part of the season was really trying to find their way and their rhythm again, and it seems like they're finding a little bit now. We'll see if they can keep it going tonight. On to the probables and returns. We mentioned in this Minnesota game that Obi Toppin and Julius Randle both went nuts. There was no Rudy Gobert there. That was a Karl-Anthony Towns center night. Rudy Gobert is expected to return tonight, probable. What are your thoughts on how that impacts things for the Wolves?
You're going to see Slomo go back to the bench. Worth noting, before Gobert got hurt, Tibbs said he was trying to find ways to play Slomo more after almost cutting him out of the rotation in the first half when he said this quote. So I'd expect him to be a big part of that second unit. Curious to see how this affects Naz Reid. Wasn't, he put up the stats, but they didn't really pop. Obviously, they played pretty poorly. So I think he gets pushed down quite a bit just to free up Prince, because you're going to need some more wings and stuff like that now that they're going to play that way without CP3. So I think those guys will get pushed down. And then obviously, Cat is going to be back to being more of a perimeter guy, which is unfortunate because, man, he hasn't really been the same offensive player in this new role. And Anthony Edwards might complain about not being able to dunk with tall guys again. So, yeah, it's all going great in Wolves land.
It's a lot of bad vibes. The bad vibes Wolves playing the supposed bad vibes Suns tonight. All right. LeBron and Pat Beverly expected back tonight for the Lakers. Lonnie Walker is questionable there. Again, we'll be watching this one live on playback.tv/ETR. Check us out tonight. What are your expectations for the Lakers with LeBron back?
Yeah, so quote, as we were talking here, LeBron said the only way he'll get over this foot thing is with rest. So that is something we are going to be watching in Lakers back-to-backs the rest of the way. Possible, be ready to bet with Lakers back-to-backs. So we've seen this be an in-game thing. We've seen him take off his shoe. We've seen him retie his shoelaces. This thing is clearly bothering him, and he said as much as I just noted. So, something to watch. I think he's going to try to play through everything. So it should be okay minutes-wise. There's definitely some downside. AD complained about playing the 4 kind of in so many words. I'm sorry, complaining about playing the 5. And wasn't even really asked about it. It was a very odd quote. Just wanted to add that in here. But yeah, the vibes are pretty bad for this team. And this talk about closing line value. I got Utah, and the line only moved like a point or a point and a half. And I hit this really quick because I want to say it. So I didn't go hard on the OKC thing. I have a flow chart, right? Okay, I got injury news. My next question is and I have to do this really quick. Is the team good or bad? If the opposing team, if it's good, then yes, I'm hitting it. If it's not, then you ask yourself, okay, what's the depth like on this team missing? It's pretty bad. So felt a little bit concerned. Just to add my super weird brain going. Russ Westbrook would lose a lot of usage, all that stuff. Pretty straightforward. All these guys get pushed down, but expecting LeBron to have his normal role is kind of the headline here.
Kendrick Nunn back to a role that is more suited for his name.
Yes, those are the best jokes.
Yeah. All right. Other injury news, Andre Drummond expected back for the Bulls. This seems like a relatively small one, but we have seen Patrick Williams' role expand in the time that Andre Drummond has been out. It's unclear if that's due to Patrick Williams' play on his own that's merited the expanded role, or if it's the result of sliding Derrick Jones Jr. minutes entirely over to the backup 5 spot. What are your thoughts there for how the Bulls react to having Andre Drummond back in the mix?
Yeah, I think it's more about Derrick Jones Jr., which could impact Javonte Green. I think Javonte Green has played pretty well and has deserved arguably to start over Patrick Williams. So I'm not, Fan and I were kind of on the same page. We thought it was more of a coincidence. But they do love the chemistry between Dragic and Derrick Jones Jr. So definitely adds to the downside of Pat. I do lean on thinking that they're two separate things, meaning Drummond's injury and Paul playing well. So, but we're going to find out a lot about that tonight.
Yeah. Okay. The only other new doubtful or out situation is very small. Yuta Watanabe on Brooklyn. Don't think it really changes things. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is how do they slot Ben in? Do you slot him in sort of, subbing him behind Daddy Clax and playing him as more of like a center for substitution patterns? That could push up a little bit more Patty Mills, a little bit more Curry, a little bit more Cam Thomas. I think that's the kind of substitution you want to go to.
I think that's likely with how well Cam Thomas has played, and they're still ramping up Joe Harris. He got up to 33 minutes last game. They've liked what they've gotten from Sumner. They got to bring Seth Curry along, so I would expect that Ben Simmons is almost utilized entirely like a backup big at this point.
So you think off the bench then?
I think so. I think
so too.
I think that'll be the case until I think it's almost a combination of managing his minutes and his workload, but also trying to find his confidence and trying to get him against second units more so he can play a little bit more aggressively before getting back against first units. I think there's a combination of things involved in that decision.
Yeah, and I'll add to that lineup's so bad. And I mean, and obviously when Kyrie comes back, it's a little bit different, but for like your KD lineup to be bad, like it was fine in the Dallas game, and it made a big run in the fourth. But it just sucks. Like you just got to make sure you're cashing in with that KD lineup, and Ben Simmons is clearly hurting it. So I think bringing him off the bench makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for today's edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. If you enjoy the content that we're providing here, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, or hitting the like button, smashing it, pressing it firmly, holding it down, whatever you'd like to do to feed the algorithm. Also, if you want to,
you forgot.
No, I'm not.
You didn't forget. I thought you were gonna hit it. Okay,
not gonna hit it. Not gonna hit it today. You got to keep the people on their toes sometimes. Got to keep them wanting and.
Well, it's because they're not hitting it enough. That's why they're not doing it.
And yearning for it. I know. Hit it more, and you get the sound effects. Also, if you are interested in joining us behind the paywall, myself and Cash Game Gary will be there tonight at 5:00 Eastern, breaking down this slate. You can check out our in-season DFS packages, weekly, monthly, season long. You can also do weekly props packages as well, where we have been red hot over the weekend. We are probably due for a little regression at some point. We're up to hitting 62% on the season, up almost 40 units just 3 weeks into the season. So it's been a really, really strong start on the prop stuff. People in Discord are humming out and giving out other alternative bets and ideas as well. So yeah, join the community over at Establish the Run with one of our premium packages. Okay, we will be back tomorrow with another edition of Establish Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll see you then at 2:00 Eastern. Take care, everybody.